Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. I'm Shivan Channa. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest.
And I'm Jyothra Kumar. And on the show today, U.S. President Donald Trump has warned that Europe was heading in a very bad direction. Now, this is just days after his new security strategy slammed the continent over mass migration. Trump has also hit out at a nasty $140 million, what he called nasty, fine by the European Union against tech tycoon Elon Musk's ex-social network. We'll get you all the details on that story on the show.
Also on World DNA, the chief of the UN's Agency for Palestinian Refugees denounced the Israeli authorities' seizure of assets from its East Jerusalem compound, which police said was part of a debt collection operation. Israeli police said that the seizures were carried out by the Jerusalem municipality as part of a debt collection procedure, but we will be tracking those real developments coming in from ground. Let's start with the headlines.
India, tell me about India. Why is India allowed to do that? They have to pay tariffs. Do they have an exemption on rice?
No, sir. We're still working on their trade deals.
Donald Trump hints at new tariffs on some agriculture imports, including Indian rice, criticizing its, as he calls, dumping into the U.S. while announcing billions in fresh aid for American farmers.
Look, Europe has to be very careful. They're doing a lot of things. We want to keep Europe. Europe is going in some bad directions.
Donald Trump calls European Union's $140 million fine imposed on X as a nasty one, saying he doesn't understand how they could justify the move, and a warning that Europe is heading in a very bad direction, as you just heard.
Ukraine's European allies show support for President Zelensky as he meets UK, French, and German leaders in London and EU and NATO heads in Brussels. Leaders expressed skepticism about parts of US proposal to end the war.
At least 6 Cambodian civilians killed in reignited border clashes with Thailand as Cambodian Defense Ministry claims Thai forces fire into the border province after midnight, killing 2 civilians, raising the death toll.
Israeli Defense Forces confirmed carrying out airstrikes in southern Lebanon, saying it targeted Hezbollah sites, including a training facility used by its elite Red Force to plan and launch attacks against Israel.
Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara vows to usher in an era of justice and coexistence a year after the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad, with tens of thousands of people taking to the streets to mark the anniversary.
At least 23 people injured as 7.6 magnitude earthquake strikes off Japan's Aomori coast, generating tsunami waves up to 70 centimeters. No major damage reported, but Japan's weather agency warns of stronger tremors in the coming days.
Greek farmers clash with police, demanding delayed EU subsidies amid probes into the past fraudulent claims. Protests force closure of 2 airports in the area and block main roads.
Έχουν ρηχτεί κρέο του Λάμψης και η σειρά του Λάμψης. Να σας πω μόνο αν θέλετε...
Around 100 school children kidnapped from a Catholic school in Nigeria last month handed over to state officials, though the fate of many others remain unknown. 315 students and staff were abducted in Niger State.
According to the Financial Times, Paramount has launched a $108 billion hostile bid to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. That is an attempt to outmaneuver Netflix after the streaming giant won an auction for the media company last week.
The U.S. President Donald Trump has warned that Europe is heading in very bad directions.
These comments are the latest in his criticisms of his allies across the Atlantic, and they come just days after his new security strategy slammed the European continent over mass migrations.
Now, Trump launched the latest broadside after he was asked about a $140 million fine imposed on Elon Musk's X social network by the European Union tech regulators. Now, Trump hit out at the move, calling it nasty. Listen to this.
Whoa, that's a nasty one. I don't know. Elon has not called me to ask for help on that one. But no, it's a tough thing. I don't think it's right. No, I don't think it's right. I don't see, how they can do that. No. I'll speak about it later. I'm going to get a full report on it. Look, Europe has to be very careful. They're doing a lot of things. We want to keep Europe. Europe is going in some bad directions. It's very bad for the people. We don't want Europe to change so much. They're going in some very bad directions. That was a big thing. Mm-hmm.
The comments follow criticism in the new U.S. national security strategy of Europe. The strategy released last week criticizes Europe as being over-regulated and facing civilizational erasure due to migration and other issues. Interestingly, the strategy also hints at U.S. intervention in European politics.
Now, it says Trump's administration would be cultivating resistance to Europe's current trajectory within European nations. Trump and the Europeans are also increasingly at odds over U.S. plans to end the war in Ukraine, with fears in Europe that Washington aims to force Kyiv into surrendering land to Russia.
On the other hand, the Kremlin has welcomed the changes to Trump's strategy, saying it has largely been consistent with Russia's vision. The updated strategy does not mention Russia as a direct threat.
The fine against X had already invited strong reactions from Trump administration officials. Secretary of State Marco Rubio had said that the fine was an attack on all American tech companies, while Vice President J.D. Vance accused the EU of trying to censor Americans online. FCC Chair Brendan Carr said Brussels was targeting X simply because it was a successful U.S. platform.
Elon Musk went further, calling the European Union a bureaucratic monster, quote-unquote, urging the bloc to be abolished and insisting that he was not kidding about it. The EU has dismissed his statements as completely crazy. And Ukraine's European allies put on a show of support for President Volodymyr Zelensky.
And this comes as U.S. is pushing a proposal on a deal to end nearly 4 years of war, which has been sparked by Russia's invasion. The Ukrainian leader first held a meeting in London with the leaders of Britain, France, and Germany before heading to Brussels for talks with the heads of European Union and NATO. Afterwards, he was to fly to Rome for a meeting on Tuesday with the Italian Prime Minister. The discussions came after U.S. President Donald Trump accused Zelensky of not reading his administration's proposal on a deal to end the war.
In London, Zelensky spoke with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron, and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. At a subsequent press conference, he said that Ukrainian territory was one of the main sticking points in negotiations, adding that Kiev had no legal or moral right to give up land to Russia in any deal.
Are we considering giving up any territory? We have no legal right to do so. According to Ukrainian law, our constitution, and international law, we have no moral right to do so either. Russia is insisting that we give up territory, but we definitely do not want to give anything up. That is what we are fighting for, as you well know. The Americans are looking for a compromise today, to be frank.
шукають компроміс. Буду відвертим.
Now, hours later in Brussels, Zelensky said he had a good and productive meeting with NATO chief Mark Rutte, European Council President Antonio Costa, and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Zelensky said our positions have been aligned on all issues. We are acting in a coordinated and constructive manner.
Ahead of the London talks, European leaders had expressed concern over parts of the US proposal. German leader Merz said that he was skeptical about some of the details, which we are seeing in the documents coming from the US side, but they would have to talk about it. Now, Britain's Starmer, the Prime Minister, said that he would not be pushing Zelensky to accept the deal spearheaded by the Trump administration, the initial version of which was criticized by Ukraine's allies as overly favorable to Russia.
Days of talks between Ukrainian and U.S. officials in Miami ended on Saturday with no apparent breakthrough, but with Zelensky committing to further negotiations. Afterwards, President Trump had criticized his Ukrainian counterpart for not reading the proposal.
Commitments are not delivered.
And I have to say that I'm a little bit disappointed that President Zelensky hasn't yet read the proposal. That was as of a few hours ago. His people love it, but he hasn't. Russia's fine with it. Russia, I guess, would rather have the whole country when you think of it. But Russia is, I believe, fine with it, but I'm not sure that Zelensky is fine with it. His people love it, but he hasn't read it.
The Ukrainian leader said that Donald Trump has his own vision for how the war should end, which differs from the Ukrainian one. Zelensky said that Ukrainian and European officials are going to work on 20 points received from the US side, and that counter-proposals should be ready by Tuesday evening to be sent to Washington. On the ground, local authorities reported 11 people were injured after Russian aerial bombs struck residential buildings in Zaporizhia on Monday afternoon. The attack came after Ukraine's Air Force said that Russia fired 149 drones overnight, with 131 neutralized and 16 others striking their targets. It follows a Russian attack on Saturday, which caused Ukraine's Zaporizhia nuclear power plant to temporarily lose all off-site power.
Now, Israeli forces raided the headquarters of the UN aid agency UNRWA in occupied East Jerusalem, seizing items and replacing the UN flag with Israel's flag.
The move has drawn strong condemnation from the United Nations and others, while UNRWA chief Philip Lazzarini called it an unlawful seizure of the agency's property. Now, Israeli police, accompanied by municipal officials, entered the compound used by the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees. According to the agency, police motorcycles as well as trucks and forklifts were brought in the premises and all communications were cut off. Furniture, IT equipment and other properties were seized and the UN flag was pulled down.
In reaction to this event, I can tell you that the Secretary General strongly condemns the unauthorized entry into the United Nations Sheikh Jarrah compound held by UNRWA, located in occupied East Jerusalem by Israeli authorities. Recently confirmed by the International Court of Justice, any executive, administrative, judicial, or legislative action against United Nations property and assets is prohibited by the Convention on Privileges and Immunities of the United Nations.
Now, Israeli police claim the raid was part of a debt collection effort over unpaid municipal taxes totaling $3.4 million. However, UNRWA and the United Nations rejected this claim, citing the 1946 Convention on the Privileges and Immunities of the UN, which exempts the UN and its assets from taxation by host countries.
According to Israel, UNRWA owned about 3.5 million US dollars in unpaid tax and interest. Is that theory accepted by the UN?
No. It is not applicable under the general conventions that cover the relationship between the United Nations and member states.
So which means this is actually a violation of international law?
That would be a correct interpretation by you.
Reports are also emerging of escalating violence in the West Bank, with Israeli forces killing 2 Palestinians. The Palestinian Health Ministry has confirmed one of the deaths, and tensions remain high in the region.
In a separate development, the Italian Defense Ministry has announced 17 Palestinians, including children, to have been evacuated to Italy for treatment. It said that the 3 Italian Air Force aircraft involved in the humanitarian evacuation is due to arrive at the airports of Rome, Turin, and Pisa, where the patients will be taken in by national medical facilities to receive necessary treatment.
2 children injured in the Gaza war who received medical treatment in the UK recently visited 10 Downing Street. Reports indicate that around 300 young people from Gaza are expected to receive treatment in Britain under this scheme, with approximately 50 having arrived so far. And farmers' protests are intensifying in Greece. They are demanding immediate release of EU subsidies.
And this comes in response to Greek authorities slowing down subsidy payments to scrutinize fraudulent claims. Hundreds of tractors blocked the highway in Greece near the city of Karditsa. The ongoing nationwide farmers' movement has blocked multiple highways since late November.
Protesters also clashed with police in Mediterranean island of Crete. The police fired tear gas before retreating from the scene, enabling the farmers to overturn a police vehicle. After the clashes, protesters shut down 2 main airports in the island. And earlier this year, EU prosecutors alleged that several individuals are making subsidy claims for land that they did not own. Greek officials say the fraudsters made more than 30 million euros using false claims for EU agricultural subsidies.
Now, Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis' government vowed a clampdown. He promised that no legitimate farmer will lose a subsidy and called on farmers to engage in dialogue. Between 2017 and 2020, 80% of the total subsidies ended up in Crete. Now, Prime Minister says he will imprison responsible people, and that is to reclaim the funds.
This standoff comes at a time when Greek farmers are going through a sheep pox epidemic. So far, livestock farmers have lost over 400,000 sheep and goats to the outbreak. The authorities, however, have denied calls from farmers to vaccinate their flocks, arguing there is no proof the measure actually works.
And Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani is New York encouraging city citizens. He is encouraging the citizens to know their rights when dealing with immigration authorities.
Mamdani posted a video message to his social media accounts on Sunday with a message saying, "Know your rights, protect your neighbors." Now, in this video, Mamdani says that people can stand up to ICE if they know their rights. He then goes on to detail residents' legal rights when dealing with U.S. immigration and customs enforcement agents.
These are the things that every New Yorker should know. First, ICE cannot enter into private spaces like your home, school, or a private area of your workplace without a judicial warrant signed by a judge. That looks like this. If ICE does not have a judicial warrant signed by a judge, you have the right to say, "I do not consent to entry," and the right to keep your door closed. Sometimes ICE will show you paperwork that looks like this and tell you that they have the right to arrest you. That is false. ICE is legally allowed to lie to you, but you have the right to remain silent.
Mamdani also vowed to protect the rights of the city's foreign-born residents amid the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. He said New York will always welcome immigrants. Mamdani also added that New Yorkers have a constitutional right to protest and promised to protect the right once he is formally inaugurated next month.
And for more on this, our correspondent, my colleague Susan, sends us this report from New York.
New York Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani's new video is more than just a community PSA. It's an early sign of open legal and political resistance to President Trump's renewed immigration crackdown, notably in blue states, by publicly instructing immigrants on how to refuse ICE questioning on the one hand, deny entry without a judicial warrant, and avoid self-incrimination. Mamdani is effectively reinforcing the limits of federal authority inside a sanctuary-leaning city like New York. Legally, he's not defying federal law. He's highlighting constitutionally protected rights, but politically, this asserts New York as a jurisdiction unwilling to cooperate with the administration's so-called aggressive enforcement push. The move underscores the widening rift between a federal immigration strategy and big city governance, setting up a likely clash over enforcement power, local autonomy, and the future of sanctuary policies under the second Trump administration. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
And after decades of limited options for male pattern baldness, a new topical drug, clascoterone, has brought fresh hopes in the late-stage clinical trials.
Ireland-based Cosmo Pharmaceuticals claim that this new drug showed significant hair growth with a safety profile similar to placebo, raising hope for millions of men worldwide.
Cosmo Pharmaceuticals, they announced the results of its two-phase trials testing out the topical drug for male androgenetic or AGA compared to placebo. People on clascoterone gained back significantly more hair. Male pattern baldness or androgenetic is a common type of hair loss that impacts men.
While most hair loss medicines either work weakly at the scalp or block hormone system-wide through oral pills, clascoterone 5% solution blocks dihydrotestosterone, or DHT, locally at the hair follicle, where baldness begins without significant absorption into the bloodstream. Now, since clascoterone is not systematically absorbed by the body, it minimizes the risk of potential side effects. Now, its two pivotal trials involved nearly 1,500 male patients diagnosed with AGA. The volunteers were randomized to receive a placebo or a topical clascoterone, 5% solution on affected parts of the scalp. Now, in one, the drug users experienced a 539% improvement in the amount of hair grown relative to placebo, while in another there was a 168% improvement.
Most treatment emergent adverse events were not considered drug-related, and the absence of meaningful systemic androgen blockade, supported by the known safety profile in its approved acne formulation, may differentiate this treatment.
And well, it's now time for a very short break on World Dinner, but don't go anywhere.
On the other side, as Indonesia struggles with the aftermath of cyclone-driven floods, helpers from the animal kingdom have also stepped in. We'll bring you a full report on that with visuals.
Liverpool have taken a bold call of dropping star forward Mohamed Salah for their Champions League game against Inter Milan. We'll get you all the details on that story as well on the other side. Keep watching WION World is One.
India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is One.
where darkness hides behind every corner, where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders, psychopaths who defy explanation, international war crimes, and millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Where darkness hides behind every corner, where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders, psychopaths who defy explanation, international war crimes, and millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA with Jyotsna and Shivan. Let's start with the headlines.
Zelensky says Kiev has no legal or moral right to cede territory to Russia in any deal to end war, emphasizing that Ukraine will not give up land despite Russian demands. Says U.S. is seeking to find a compromise.
Step, and it would be right for European power.
India, tell me about India. Why is India allowed to do that? They have to pay tariffs. Do they have an exemption on rice?
No, sir. We're still working on their trade deals.
Donald Trump hints at new tariffs on some agricultural imports, including Indian rice, criticizing its dumping, as they call it, into the US, while announcing billions in fresh aid for American farmers.
Donald Trump calls European Union's $150 million fine imposed on Elon Musk's X a nasty one, saying he doesn't understand how they could justify the move and warns that Europe is heading in very bad directions.
At least 6 Cambodian civilians killed in reignited border clashes with Thailand, as Cambodian Defense Ministry claims Thai forces fired into the border province after midnight, killing 2 civilians, raising the death toll.
Israeli Defense Forces confirmed carrying out airstrikes in southern Lebanon, saying it targeted Hezbollah sites, including a training facility used by its elite Radwan force to plan and launch attacks against Israel.
At least 23 people injured as a 7.6 magnitude earthquake strikes off Japan's Aomori coast, generating tsunami waves up to 70 centimeters. No major damage reported, but Japan's weather agency warns of stronger tremors in the days to come.
The U.S. government will soon allow NVIDIA to export its H200 AI chips to China. The move signals a shift towards reopening high-end chip trade despite earlier restrictions, drawing scrutiny over possible implications for global AI power dynamics and national security.
Manchester United beat Wolves 4-1 win in the Premier League. United captain Bruno Fernandes scores a brace to consign Wolves to a 9th consecutive defeat in all competitions.
And it all began like any other party in Goa. Tourists thronged Birch by Romeo Lane, a nightclub near the backwaters of Alpura, hoping for a fun night out.
All was going well as well. Just as usual, the music played all night. The revelers were grooving to a Bollywood song, but little did they know, a tragedy was in the making at that point. A massive fire broke out in the wee hours, killing 25 people, of which 5 were tourists. But the nightclub owners, Gaurav and Saurabh Luthra, fled to Phuket immediately after the incident to avoid police investigation. A lookout circular has been issued against the owners.
Well, so far, 4 people have been arrested and sent to 6-day police custody. A 5th accused, Bharat Kohli, who used to oversee the daily operations at the club, has been arrested from Delhi.
3 senior officials of the Goa government, including the then director of Panchayat, have been suspended for their role in allowing this nightclub to function and start operations in 2023.
The Goa Chief Minister Pramod Sawant has ordered a full probe. A 4-member magisterial inquiry committee has been formed to investigate the cause of the fire. The team will ascertain the facts and circumstances that led to this fire tragedy.
The inferno has once again brought to the fore glaring lapses, along with laxity of government officials in enforcing rules. The FIR filed by the Goa police said the accused persons conducted a fire show at this nightclub without providing fire safety equipment and gadgets. According to the FIR, that's the first information report, the nightclub did not have an emergency exit on the ground floor, as well as on the deck floor to evacuate in case of any kind of emergency.
Well, the fire department says the nightclub was lacking in functional fire alarm systems, automatic sprinkler systems, and lack of smoke extraction and basement ventilation systems. Absence of illuminated exit signage and lack of emergency lighting and lack of evacuation plans were also found by the fire department.
And in India, the Indigo crisis continues. The latest update is that the airline CEO has been summoned for questioning today. Indigo gave its response to a show cause notice issued by India's civil aviation regulator.
And amid all this, the airline says the operations are expected to stabilize by the 10th of December. But even on Monday, over 500 flights were cancelled. Now, Delhi, Bengaluru and Hyderabad are among the hardest hit cities, with all three reporting over 100 cancellations each. Mountains of luggage were seen at Delhi's Indira Gandhi International Airport. It has become a familiar sight over the last few days.
Now, the airline says that operations are getting back on track. It expects to operate over 1,800 flights today to 137 out of its 138 destinations. Now, that's more than the 1,650 flights that it operated on Sunday, but still short of its 2,300 average daily figure.
Meanwhile, India's Civil Aviation Ministry has given an update on cancellations and refunds. Between December 1st and 7th, over 586,000 passenger name records were cancelled and refunded. The refund amount was almost 570 crore rupees. That's more than $63 million US. The ministry added that Indigo had returned about 4,500 bags to passengers out of a total of 9,000 bags.
And the crisis has impacted Indigo's stocks. On Monday, the airline's share value fell by over 8%, extending the slide that began last week. Indigo's value has fallen by about 16% since the crisis began and wiped out about $4 billion US from its market cap. Today's big plunge was also, this is of course the plunge that took place very recently. It was fueled by the threat of regulatory action against the airline yesterday.
India's civil aviation regulator, the DGCA, had issued a show cause notice to Indigo. The airline was initially supposed to respond by Monday 6 p.m. Indigo's response was delayed, but only by a minute, while the DGCA says it received the response at 1 minute past 6.
In a press release, the DGCA then made some of Indigo's responses public. The DGCA noted that the airline was profusely apologetic. It also stated that Indigo has asked for more time to find the cause of this crisis. Meanwhile, sources say that Indigo's CEO has been summoned for questioning, and this is by the committee constituted to look into the case. The questioning will reportedly take place today at 11 a.m.
But amid all these woes for Indigo, India's aviation minister has offered a glimmer of hope. He admonished Indigo, but he also spoke about the opportunity for airlines in India. Listen to this.
We have envisioned the demand to be growing at such a rate that we want to have more airlines in the picture. And I have continuously said on the floor of the House, in both the houses and outside also whenever I'm speaking, that India today has the capacity of 5 big airlines. We are talking about 2 airlines, but the capacity, the demand that India is creating today, we need to have 5 big airlines. And that has been the efforts from the ministry to encourage more airlines to come in. This is the time to start an airline in India. This has been the time. There is so much growth that is happening. So let us all encourage more airlines to come into this industry along with the...
All right, moving on. 2 senior U.S. officials are in India this week for a high-level meeting.
The talks are aimed at pushing for deeper trade, political and strategic ties, and the visits come just days after Russian President Vladimir Putin's trip to Delhi, making the timing especially significant.
Now, the U.S. is rolling out a carefully calibrated diplomatic push in India. Washington is expected to press New Delhi on economic issues, emerging technologies, and shared security priorities in the Indo-Pacific. The U.S. State Department says that the Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs arrives for a 5-day visit. She will hold talks with India's Foreign Secretary.
The American delegate will also travel to Bengaluru, where she is expected to visit ISRO and meet private sector leaders. A second delegation, led by a deputy US trade representative, is also landing in India this week. Their goal is to finally conclude the first phase of the long-pending bilateral trade agreement between India and the US.
The visits come at a sensitive moment. Just days ago, Russian President Vladimir Putin wrapped up a two-day state visit to India. Delhi and Moscow set a bold target of $100 billion in annual trade by 2030. Meanwhile, the U.S. has penalized India's imports of Russian crude oil, and this by imposing 50% tariffs on several Indian exports to the U.S. Even so, Washington remains New Delhi's largest trading partner, though Indian exports to U.S. have slowed recently.
The talks this week also follow the latest meeting of the India-US Joint Working Group on Counter-Terrorism. Both sides condemned the recent terror attacks in Pahalgam, in Kashmir, and near the Red Fort in Delhi. They called for more UN sanctions against groups like the Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed. A powerful 7.6 magnitude earthquake shook Japan, injuring at least 30 people and damaging buildings and infrastructure.
And this happened in the country's northeast. The quake triggered tsunami warnings and forced 90,000 residents to be evacuated from their homes, while the warnings were lifted by authorities hours later.
Hi.
The earthquake struck off the eastern coast of Aomori Prefecture around 11:16 p.m. local time on Monday, triggering a tsunami wave of 40 centimeters. These waves hit Japan's Pacific coast in the northern region approximately 27 minutes after the earthquake. On Japan's scale of seismic intensity, the tremor registered an upper 6, a quake strong enough to make it impossible to keep standing or move without crawling.
Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi confirmed at least 30 injuries resulting from the quake.
Regarding the earthquake which struck off the east of Aomori Prefecture, we have so far received reports of 30 injuries and 1 residential fire. We are continuing efforts to release information on the relevant damage. In addition, due to this earthquake, it has been assessed that the likelihood of a large-scale earthquake occurring in the region from Hokkaido and off the Sanriku coast has become consistently elevated, and an advisory notice for heightened caution has been issued for the Hokkaido and Sanriku areas.
Earlier, authorities warned that tsunami waves could go up to 3 meters, urging residents to move immediately to higher ground and stay away from the shoreline.
According to the Japan Meteorological Agency, the quake occurred at a depth of about 50 kilometers off the east coast of Aomori, shaking a wide area of northern and eastern Japan. Japan sits atop the volatile Ring of Fire, and it is no stranger to seismic fury.
The nation has endured some of the world's most devastating quakes, from the catastrophic 2011 magnitude 9 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami to the deadly Kobe disaster in 1995 and the repeated jolts that shake Hokkaido and northern Honshu every few years.
The latest tremor is another reminder of the country's permanent vulnerability, where mega-thrust quakes can erupt with little warning. The archipelago is a home to around 125 million people. It experiences around 1,500 jolts every year. The vast majority are mild, although the damage they cause varies according to their location and depth below the Earth's surface. Now, as Indonesia struggles with the aftermath of cyclone-driven floods, helpers from the animal kingdom have also stepped in.
Trained elephants are now assisting authorities in clearing the debris left scattered across impacted communities. 4 domesticated and expertly trained Sumatran elephants have been deployed to help clear the debris across Sumatra's Aceh. The elephants, Abu, Mido, Ajis and Noni. They are working in areas unreachable by heavy machinery. They will also assist in reopening blocked paths, delivering logistics, restoring access to homes, and aiding in searches for residents.
Elephants have been here to help the people of Munasabi village. With these elephants, we can be helped.
The Sumatran Islands, some of the worst impacted region, will require 51.82 trillion rupiah. That is about 3.10 billion US dollars in reconstruction and recovery funds as per initial government estimates.
Now, amid all of this, North Sumatra and West Sumatra will need $773 million and $811 million, respectively, for recovery. Much of this funding still awaits President Subianto's approval, recording a death toll of nearly 960, with several hundreds still missing. Indonesia was one of the key countries that was ravaged by a series of cyclonic storms that took over Asia late last month.
Besides the devastation, Indonesians, especially in Aceh, are also reeling under worsening diseases and a lack of medical care, with workers struggling to help dozens of residents at the lone hospital in the area. The markets are increasingly confident the U.S. Federal Reserve will deliver a third consecutive 0.25% interest rate cut on December 10th.
But Fed officials are divided over whether inflation or the labor market is the bigger issue, suggesting a split vote. And that also reflects a slower pace of rate cuts in 2026. In this next report, we decode those expectations and more. Take a look.
After the last Fed meeting, policymakers appeared less reluctant to cut rates again this year. In recent weeks, Fed officials have acknowledged that even after 1.5% of cumulative rate cuts, monetary policy remains modestly restrictive. However, on the risks of the Fed's dual mandate of price stability and maximum employment, policymakers seem more divided. Expectations have swung wildly in the build-up to the December 10th meeting, but a weaker jobs growth story has turned bets in favor of a third rate cut in a row. Still, several Fed members remain concerned that the potential for stickier, more elevated inflation from tariffs cannot be ignored. For these policymakers, the economy is still growing. Stock markets are at all-time highs and unemployment remains very low. So to them, there doesn't appear to be a pressing need to cut rates again. Still, market bets show the December rate cut is more or less a done deal. For investors, what the Fed says about the 2026 rate path is more important. The riskiest corners of the markets, like cryptos, have taken a beating. For the first time in over a decade, cryptos will diverge from stocks if the current trend continues through to the end of the year. While the Fed is expected to project one more rate cut, private jobs data points to more easing action. However, will inflation play spoilsport is an important question to look at. Trump's tariffs are slowly creeping into everyday goods prices. Will that expand to other goods and add to inflation pressures? That is the delicate balance the Fed has to look at. But with the current Fed boss Jerome Powell's term ending in March, bets are for Trump's new hire to adhere to the president's desire for deeper and faster rate cuts. Will the new Fed chief be in a position to do so? Will the data support more rate cuts? That uncertainty remains. With the Fed's favorite inflation gauge currently at around 3% annually, for now, markets do not seem to be looking too far into 2026 and are only weighing in on Fed action under Powell. Business Bureau WION World is One.
Meta is preparing to make major changes to how advertising works on Facebook and Instagram across the European Union.
Well, giving users a choice over whether they want personalized ads or not, are they going to be thinking about it? According to the European Commission, starting from January next year, users in the EU will be able to choose either to share their data for fully personalized advertising or to limit how much data is collected and receive a version of the platforms with more generic, less targeted ads. The Commission says this satisfies a key requirement of the Digital Markets Act, or DMA, which demands that large tech gatekeepers offer users a genuine choice rather than forcing them to agree to extensive data tracking. The decision follows months of pressure from regulators. In June, the Commission warned Meta that it could face daily fines if it continued with its controversial pay or consent model, where users either accepted full data tracking or ads or paid for a subscription to use the platforms without ads. Regulators said the model did not represent a fair or free choice.
Earlier this year, Meta was fined $233 million after the Commission found that the model breached the DMA from November 2023 to November 2024. The company initially proposed limited changes, but regulators said they were not enough. These new options mark one of the first major enforcement actions under the DMA, a law designed to curb the power of the world's largest tech firms and give users stronger control over their personal data. For millions of Facebook and Instagram users across Europe, the change could reshape how they interact with online advertising and set a precedent for privacy expectations worldwide.
And a massive update from the world of sports. Liverpool have taken a bold call of dropping star forward Mohamed Salah for their Champions League game against Inter Milan.
Now, this decision comes just days after Salah accused the club of throwing him under the bus. Following Liverpool's 3-3 draw against Leeds United on Saturday, Salah had not only launched an attack on the club, but also on manager Arne Slot, claiming he no longer has a relationship with the Dutchman. The 33-year-old turned up for training on Monday and was involved with the first team. But when Liverpool announced their 19-man squad for their Champions League game, Salah's name was missing. While it is understood that no formal disciplinary action taken by the club for Salah's trade has been made, but the decision to drop him was made by the club leadership with the full support of Slot. The club has reportedly decided to remove Salah from selection for a short period of time.
All right, now let's quickly revisit the statement that had triggered the crisis. I'm quoting now. I said many times before that I had a good relationship with the manager, and all of a sudden we don't have any relationship. I don't know why, but it seems to me that someone doesn't want me in the club. It's like I'm being thrown more under the bus. I don't think I'm the problem. I have done so much for this club. I don't have to go every day fighting for my position because I have earned it. This is what he then said.
Liverpool manager Arne Slot said that he was surprised by Salah's comments that their relationship had broken down completely. He added that he had no clue if the 33-year-old would play for the club again.
Now, Salah is Liverpool's third highest goal scorer of all time with 250 goals in 420 appearances for the club. But he has been a shadow of his former self during Liverpool's struggles this season. Salah had scored 5 goals in 21 appearances across competition. The Reds are 9th in the Premier League and the 13th in the Champions League. All right, that's all on World DNA for today, but we leave you with some climate stories that have been making headlines across the world. Thanks for staying with us. Keep watching WION World this month.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
Vielleicht nur als Impostant. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Welcome back to WION World is One. You're watching Speed News with me, Vidut Kathuria. Let's get started. Cambodia says